I decided I needed to sit. I'm kind of nervous. I talk a lot to a lot of different people. And when I'm doing that, I'm helping them, and I'm getting to choose when I share about myself. And so for some reason, this was totally different because I was chosen to share about myself. And I'm not always so good at sharing about me unless it relates to you. So here I am. My story of healing. I was born 2 days before Christmas. My mom and dad, my mom had a stillbirth, then came back and got married and had a miscarriage, and then I was born. And so the really, really good part of that is I knew I was loved, I was precious, I was wanted. Mom's best Christmas present ever. The other side of that is somehow I felt responsible. My mom had been born during the end of World War II. My grandma was taken as a Catholic pull to the work camps. And they came through Catholic Charities here when Mom was 6. And so there was a lot of stuff there that we had no idea. It wasn't until much, much, much later that I realized the impact that that had in all of our lives. And the really neat thing about that is Mom and I have done a tremendous amount of healing. So I will fast forward and just say, as much as we have struggled through years of stuff, today we are friends, we live together, we share, and it's been a wonderful thing. It's been a really wonderful place of healing. And there have been different points in time where we have been in more intense healing of our relationship, and other times where it's been not so much. So, my dad's family was German Catholic, and he was one of 15. And so the beautiful part of that was that I had 60 cousins, and I grew up Catholic, and it was a really wonderful experience. We were all musical. My Aunt Rita taught me to play piano, starting when I was in 3rd grade. And when I was 5, I had had a lawnmower accident. And that actually did play a tremendous, again, more of a role in my life than I thought. Years later, I realized that how I internalized that. I wanted a glass of milk. So the babysitters told me to jump on the mower because they couldn't hear me. So I jumped on, except that I slipped on the wheel and fell in front of the mower. And the way my brain internalized that was my needs mess everything up. So now I'm feeling responsible to be there for my mom, who gets really crazy with different kinds of emotions, and my needs mess everything up. And I'm just trying to figure, I'm not consciously aware of any of this. I'm just living it out. And so fast forward, in part of the Catholic church was that we got into the charismatic movement. So in 2nd grade, I was baptized in the Holy Spirit. And so that was a really very special experience for me. My mom played guitar in the music group. Again, music has been absolutely instrumental in my life and has always been there when I have struggled. And so that's always something that I go back to. That's where my soul is, that's where my spirit is, that's where my connection is. So when you see me up here having fun and being in joy, it's because music takes me right there, and it's so real and it's so there, and I just want to share it with you. I just want you to be there with me because it's an absolute beautiful experience for me. So part of what I've learned about healing, I might be jumping around a bit, and that's okay.
We won't know.
Well, there is no plan, so you won't know because I don't know. Because that's been part of my thing, is I've learned that I don't have to force things. My last really major challenge in life was all about trying to make things happen that I thought should be happening in my life that weren't happening in my life, and guess how that went? It doesn't go so well. And at that point, I had been in recovery for 10 years from my alcoholism. But I had not really gotten to the core of what was happening for me. I had gotten there, and I guess that's part of what I've realized. So when I first got into counseling, I was about 18, and I thought I would go to counseling, and I would figure this out, and I would be done, and that would be good, and I'd live my life, and everything would be great. It doesn't work that way. So healing for me is very much a process. And I had a very deep, I feel very grateful that I had such a deep connection to the presence of God. Because even as I grew up in the Catholic Church, there were certain things that I just didn't agree with because I knew they weren't true. So my senior year of high school, my first research paper was on God is love. God is love. Love is God. So if we're loving, we're sharing God, we're being God, we are God. And that did not quite fit. And they've talked about purgatory and hell, and I'm like, God is love. Love could not ever eternally damn us to someplace other than love, because that wouldn't be love. So it didn't make sense to me. So I get to college, and I started playing in a guitar group when I was in 7th grade. Taught myself in 5th grade. And learned a lot through playing in that group. And then went to college, and my part-time job was to lead services. And I was doing up to 7 masses a weekend. And people were like, well, doesn't that get boring? You're hearing the same thing over and over. And what was really cool for me to realize is that it really doesn't. So even then, I was living in the moment in a way I didn't even know I was living in the moment, because now I know that so much more than I knew it then. And yet it kept things live. Even like the one church, I did the same music 3 times. It didn't matter. Because when you're in the moment, it's there, it's alive, you're sharing it, you're connecting. And so that's the healing that happens. So I get back here, and I found that I couldn't stay in the Catholic Church. I really tried, but they were much more conservative here, and it just wasn't feeling right, so I started to explore. One of my best friends from college said, you need to try Unity. I'm like, okay. It took me about a year to get here. When I walked in, I felt like I was coming home. I was like, oh, there's a place that believes what I believe. Like, they actually believe what I believe. Like, wow. And so that was amazing to me. And so I was here for a while. And then Father Michael Holland started Holy Redeemer, which is an independent Catholic church. So I ended up going there and doing the music there. And that was an amazing experience of being able to celebrate the Mass in a way that was much more positive and progressive. And then that fell apart. He went into treatment for addiction, and very quickly that fell out of my life at a time when several other things were falling apart in my life. I switched jobs, and the job I left, it was rather traumatic the way things fell apart there. So it took me a while to even get back here, and it was really cool because when I came back, Linda hadn't started too long before. And again, it was like coming home. It was just, and the community I feel here today is community that I have never ever felt anywhere. And I am so grateful for the connection that I feel to all of you. And it's still difficult for me. Like in social hour, I don't share a lot about myself. And I'll go home and I'm like, I didn't really talk to people, I just kind of hung out. And I'm learning that that's okay. So, there we are. I want to share a couple things that I've learned as part of my healing. I studied Course in Miracles. That was phenomenal because it moved me into a much deeper understanding of what is true for us, for God, for people. The message of Christ in a way that fit for me. And I was at my grandmother's funeral. We had taken care of her the last 2 years of her life, and we're singing. And I did, into thy hands I commit my spirit. And I still remember singing that at that moment and realizing that when I'm singing that, I'm singing it for everyone. That I is you and you are me. And I realized that in a whole different way, that every time I pray that song, because I've used it daily for many years, it's not just about me. It's about everyone. Into thy hands I commit my spirit, because my spirit is one. And we can't separate out of that. My sponsor says, another lives within me. And I love that because it reminds me that I don't have to go anywhere. It's right here. I just have to stop and remember, be still, and know, let go of all this stuff happening in my head. Because it keeps thinking, and there's so much information out there and so much information in here, and sometimes I get really confused and frustrated with that and really excited and wanting all more. And it's not about that either. It's just about being right here, right now. In love, in joy, in gratitude. And there's a guy by the name of Matt Kahn that I connected with through Facebook. Not Facebook, through the internet. It's actually another way. And his book is called Whatever Arises. Love that. Whatever arises. Love that. And that's what I've learned to do, because it's not about, I grew up thinking I had to be perfect, that I had to have it figured out, that I had to help everyone else, that I had to have it together. It's not about that. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to have it all together. That healing is about accepting what is right here within me, all the humanness, as well as the power of spirit deeper in. And that as stuff comes up, acceptance is what's going to help me move through that and past that and into a better place. As long as I'm fighting or forcing or pushing away or resisting, I'm not getting very far. So I've learned to go with the flow, to stop and be quiet, to notice when I'm getting tired. I have lots of good friends that remind me to notice when I'm getting tired, because that's still probably my biggest challenge, is I want to help and I want to heal. I know that I'm a healer, and there's this new process I'm doing called rapid resolution therapy that's just amazing, and I want to do it with everyone, and I'm one person. So again, it's back to acceptance and really finding, it's challenged me in a whole new way, in a whole bigger way, to find that balance of loving me. And you know, they say, love others as you love yourself. I learned that a long time ago, and I'm still learning that today. And so that's, to me, what healing is about, is that it's an ongoing journey of growth and love and just being.